The forbidden tale of Pilate, the horror lurking in Alaska's icy waters. Every night, as Jack cast his line into the churning sea, he could feel the weight of generations pressing down on him, like the icy winds sweeping through the coastal village. Whispers of an ancient curse wrapped around the villagers, tales of lost souls and fishermen who never returned. The tide brought fish, yes, but it also unearthed the memories he wished to bury. Especially Lily. Her absence clawed at him with the same urgency as the crashing waves, a wound that festered year after year. Tonight, under a moon veiled in dark clouds, Jack discovered the relic. It wasn't anything he'd expect. A locket, tarnished yet ornate, shimmering in the moonlight as he dug through the damp sand. His breath hitched. It felt alive, heavy with history, and somehow wrong. A chill ran down his spine, the kind that makes your skin prick, as if the very air warned him to turn back. But he couldn't. He picked it up. Fee. She stood at his door, defiance in her posture, ready to battle the ghosts of their past. Jack's heart soared, then plummeted at the sight of her, so much like her mother. But there was something darker creeping behind her eyes. Moments passed as memories clashed, and Jack feared the locket he found might be the very root of their strife. As eerie occurrences grew, the village sensed the awakening of something sinister. Shadows danced like wraiths, and an oppressive dread cloaked the nights. The relic held more than memories. It was a connection to a darker legacy, a family secret clawing its way back to the surface. Jack felt the tide turning against them, a relentless force that demanded reckoning. "Dad," Lily whispered one night, her voice shaking with fear. "What did you find?" Jack stared deeply into the relic's glinting surface, unsure if he could handle the truth. A strange fog rolled in from the sea, thick and heavy, swallowing the coastline. It felt wrong, intoxicate. It feels wrong. The wind howled outside, a mournful lament that seemed to echo Lily's own unease. She stepped closer, her eyes darting to the locket in Jack's hand. "What do you mean, wrong?" The tremor in her voice twisted something deep within him, a chord strumming painfully at the edges of their history together. Jack hesitated. He wanted to tell her everything, but how could he? With every breath, the air thickened with unspoken truths. He finally uttered, "It's like it's pulling at me. Like it knows things I don't." The truth was, it felt like a beckoning, a call from the ocean that he couldn't ignore. "I can help you uncover the past, if that's what you need," Lily whispered, stepping back slightly, shadows dancing behind her like phantoms in a fever dream. But deep in her voice, he sensed something else lurking, an unidentifiable chill. As they stood there, a loud crash came from outside. The sound broke through the moment, sending both of them jumping. "Jack!" she shouted, but he didn't turn back. He had to know what had happened, what secrets were buried beneath the waves. "Matt!" Jack yelled as he approached the man. "What happened? Where have you been?" Matt looked up, his eyes glazed and haunted. We found something," he rasped, clutching at his throat like each breath was a battle. "What did you find?" Jack pressed, urgency gripping him. "The locket," Matt gasped, and Jack's gut tightened. "We thought it was just a legend, but it called to us, to the others. When the tide went out, it showed us." He stumbled, almost collapsing. It was like a dream, dark and twisted. Jack felt the world tilt on its axis. "You're scaring me, man! What do you mean?" Lily finally caught up, her face pale under the flickering streetlight. The weight of the night pressed in around them. Matt's features twisted in agony, words clawing to escape. Everyone who found it, they didn't come back the same. Not until tonight. The woe. What were they up against? Matt steadied himself, hands planted against the damp ground. They're not just gone. They're changed. The sea takes what it wants, Jack. There's evil beneath those waters. I saw it. The flicker of fear coursed through Jack like ice water in his veins. Lily's expression morphed into raw horror, the torment weaving tighter around them. "You're saying the locket is evil?" It seemed impossible, yet the way Matt's eyes flickered with panic told her more than words could ever convey. "Yes, I found that out the hard way." Matt's voice faded. "We're connected to it now. The sea wants us." He then collapsed, breathless, into the mud. Jack knelt beside him, heart thrumming wildly. "Matt, you have to tell me more. What do we do?" But the shadows grew heavier. Panic surged through the air, enveloping them like a predator stalking its prey. Standing over Matt, Jack felt the ground shift beneath him. Was it the earth trembling under the weight of tea? Lily shouted, voice quaking with fear. "Are you insane? You can't go near it!" But the pull of the locket, the mystery of their shared past, tugged at Jack's heart. He looked at Matt, crumpled in the mud, and felt a surge of determination. "We have to know. It's the only way to free ourselves, to find out what really happened to Lily's mom." His words hung in the air, like a knife, precarious yet sharp. But just as he turned to lead the charge, something shifted within the shadows behind them. A figure emerged from the fog, tall, cloaked, looming. Jack's breath caught. Could it be? No, it can't be. The figure moved forward with a haunting familiarity. The outline grew clearer, bringing with it a tempest of emotions. Fear, longing, despair. "Jack," a soft voice trembled through the storm. "I've come back for you." Lily's face drained of color as she stepped back. "Mom?" Those two syllables crashed through the night like thunder, reverberating a truth Jack had never heard. Lily's eyes swelled with tears, her voice trembling. "Jack, she's been gone for years. How can this be possible?" Time halted, pounding loudly in his ears. The figure smiled, a knowing smirk that sent chills racing down his spine. And Jack knew, without a doubt, that nothing would ever be the same again. The fog thickened, suffocating the truth that loomed in the air. Questions hung heavy. What had the sea unearthed? What other horrors lay beneath those churning waves? And as the tempest raged around them, Jack realized it was only just beginning. The fog thickened, suffocating the truth that loomed in the air. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. How could this be Lily's mom? The years had transformed the woman standing before them. But the recognition in Lily's eyes was undeniable. "Mom?" Lily's voice was small, barely more than a whisper. She took a step back, stumbling off the path. The world spun. Everything felt unreal. Jack wanted to reach out, to drag Lily back. It was as if the ground had shifted beneath them, opening up a chasm filled with dark secrets. "Because it's time for you to understand," the woman said, her gaze piercing through the night. The familiar warmth in her eyes felt foreign now, twisted with something darker. Time for all of us to face what was hidden. Lily stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. I thought I lost you. How can this be happening? The fear in her voice twisted Jack's heart. He wanted to comfort her, to remind her that this was madness, but he couldn't find the words. Mom, you disappeared without a trace. And now you come back? Lily's voice broke, the pain palpable. What did you do? There are things you cannot understand, my dear. The woman's expression shifted, becoming something almost sinister. Things I couldn't let you. A loud clack interrupted her words. Lightning flashed, illuminating the shoreline for a split second. The shadows of the past seemed to rise with it. Matt's voice trembled, pushing through the chaos. We need to leave, now. The urgency pierced through the air. Jack glanced at Matt, confused by his rising panic. Why? This is about Lily's mom. We can't just run away. But a deep, primal fear gripped him, drawing him closer to the whispering waves. Because, Matt stepped forward, eyes wide. She isn't just back. She's changed. I seen it myself. And the others, they don't come back whole. Jack felt the world tilt under him. Could it be true? Every fisherman who had vanished, were they trapped in the same fate? What do you mean? He snapped, voice hoarse with tension. She told me, Matt shouted, arm shaking as he pointed toward the woman. She called to us from the depths, said she could grant us wishes, but at a price. Wishes? Jack chuckled, disbelief choking him. You think she's some kind of fairy tale? She's our hope. She's a puppet of the sea. Matt's rage forced Jack to reevaluate. Look at what she's done to you. What's left of her? Suddenly, the woman's face twisted with pain. No, not you, she murmured, dropping her hand to clutch her chest. The shadow behind her shifted closer, dark and suffocating. I did what I had to. You don't know what they want. A deep rumble surged through the ground as another wave crashed against the rocks. The darkness pressed in around them. Jack took a step back, the fear clawing deeper. What are you saying? Tell us! Your greed brought this upon us, she spat, her voice low and feral. Generations of Pilate blood have cursed this land. I thought I could protect you. But the locket, it binds us all. I never wanted this, Jack yelled, rage mixing with devastation. It was just a piece of jewelry. Just a key to your past, she shrieked, her eyes dancing with mania. Don't you see? The sea will take what it deems fit. It always H. Jack's mind raced. Could she be right? There were whispers in the village about the Pilate legacy, their dark history. What if they were tied to something larger, something evil? Mom, Lily cried, advancing into the fog. What do we do? She reached out, and Jack saw desperation in her face. He felt the pull of the locket, wanting to understand, yet stood frozen. Lily, don't, Jack shouted, reaching for her, but it was too late. As her fingers brushed against her mom's hand, a sharp, gasping sound broke from the woman's lips. Lightning struck, illuminating the space in a blinding flash, revealing something stark. Jack's heart dropped as he saw the truth behind her face, a figure of pure agony. Her features melted, revealing layers of sorrow and horror. She wasn't just altered. She was consumed by that which lay beneath the waves. No, Jack shouted, as Lily recoiled, horror spreading across her face. What are you? Your true nature, the woman hissed. Eyes narrowing. I never wanted to return from the depths, but the sea gave me no choice, and it wants you too. It wants you all. Dread consumed Jack, a darkness creeping into his heart. What had he stumbled upon? Were they all meant to pay the price for their heritage? Run, he screamed, pulling Lily back. We need to get to safety. But the figures swirled closer, moving like a storm. Lily's heels dug into the ground. No, I can't leave her. Lily, think, Jack pleaded, desperation seeping into every word. This isn't your mom. Look at what she's become. The truth crashed down on him, a wave of disbelief mingling with despair. But before he could drag her away, the figures surged. Shadows engulfed her mom, twisting her form into something monstrous, as if drawn by the very locket that hung so nefariously in Jack's hands. A loud howl echoed through the storm, a chorus that sounded horrifically familiar. "Leave us!" her mother screeched. The depths of the sea woven eye. Terror clawed at him, threatening to consume him whole. "Lily, we have to go now!" "No!" she cried, tears spilling over. She reached for her horror-stricken mother, hands trembling. Jack felt something within him crack at the sight. Could he really abandon her? Was Lily truly willing to sacrifice herself, to lose everything for a mother who was no longer there? The tide swelled, crashing against the shore, and Jack knew something dark was awakening. The locket pulsed in his grip, a jarring rhythm that matched the chaos unfolding around them. They stood at the edge of a precipice, and Jack felt it, the call of the sea, deeper than any familial bond, rising with a vengeance. What would this dark truth unleash? What bonds would the night claim? Yet just as the tempest raged, Jack found light within his chest, a spark of fighting spirit. "If you want us, you'll have to take us," he shouted defiantly. He turned to Lily, eyes fierce. "Grab my hand. Whatever happens, we fight." Will they escape the shadow of the past, or will the sea claim them both? As the darkness surged, Jack knew one thing for certain. The mysteries had only just begun. The air crackled with tension as Jack and Lily sprinted toward the jagged edge of the coastline, adrenaline surging through their veins. The storm raged on, waves crashing against the rocks with a deafening roar. Jack glanced back, the figure of Lily's mother twisted and contorted, darkness pooling around her like a cloak of despair. "I can't believe this is happening," Lily gasped, her voice trembling as they darted further from the haunting shadows. "We have to get away from here." "I know, but we need to figure out what's going on," Jack replied, pulling her hand tighter in his. He could still feel the locket's pulse in his palm. It was calling to him, a siren song laced with despair. Thunder boomed overhead, drowning out their voices, and the wind howled like a wounded beast. Each step felt like running. What if she's not really your mom? What if... Before he could finish, a sudden blast of cold air enveloped them. The fog thickened, swirling in ominous patterns. There was an electric charge in the air, a sense of something lurking just outside their view. Jack felt goosebumps prickling across his skin. "Jack," Lily whispered, her eyes wide. "What's happening now?" And that's when they saw it, a shimmering shape emerging from the fog. At first, it looked like the outline of a boat, ghostly and ethereal. But then it twisted and shifted, turning into something much more horrific. Get back!" Jack shouted, instinctively stepping in front of Lily. They stumbled backward as the figure became clearer. A mass of twisted bodies, faces frozen in terror, trapped in an eternal scream. The air turned thick, suffocating them. What are they? Lily gasped, gripping Jack's arm. I don't know. Jack's voice trembled, fear clawing at his insides as the phantoms advanced toward them. I think it wants us to do something, he shouted, heart racing, uncertainty clawing through him. He could feel it, a rush of memories seeping through the locket, visions of the past unveiling in snapshots of pain and loss. He took a deep breath, fighting through the fear. Listen to me. Whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. Lily nodded, determination igniting in her gaze. The phantoms drew closer, hovering just outside their reach. It was both terrifying and mesmerizing. And then Jack raised the locket, holding it aloft like a talisman. I won't let you take us. The phantoms shrieked, a cacophony of pain that scratched at their ears. The shadows writhed, angry and chaotic. Jack felt the air crackle with tension, as if they were standing at the brink of some unfathomable truth. And then, with a blinding flash, the locket emitted a searing light that broke through the darkness. The shadows recoiled. It was Lily's mother again, but this time she seemed different. Her face was a mask of rage, her features grotesque, yet familiar. You think you can escape? She howled, voice echoing with the multitude of the tormented. All you've done is awaken what was supposed to stay buried. What are you talking about? Jack shouted, stepping back protectively in front of Lily. You're not my mom. What's happened to you? The woman's eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. I was bound to the sea, a vessel of power and darkness. You, Jack, are part of this legacy now. The locket binds us all. She extended her arms, and shadows began swirling around her, melding with her form. No, we won't go back, Jack shouted, heart racing, clutching the locket tighter. You don't own us. Lily stepped forward, anguish crossing her features. Mom, please, you're not like this. Fight it. But her mother just laughed, a mocking sound that cut through the night. Oh, sweet daughter, why? They pushed back against the mist, but it seeped through, wrapping around them like a serpent. Jack's heart hammered as he realized the truth, dawning hard and ugly. No, thou art lying, Jack shouted, shaking his head violently. This can't be true. Lily's mom stepped closer, the shadows fading momentarily, revealing a smirk that made Jack's skin crawl. Thou wanted to know what the sea took from thee? It took my power, and now, sweet girl, it will take yours too. What dost thou mean? Jack's voice was a whisper now, dread pooling in his gut. Lily's face twisted with fear, a realization crashing over her. Mom, you can't mean. What are you saying? What happened to you? To keep thee safe, I sacrificed everything, her mother brayed, laughter mixing with the shrieks of long-lost souls. Now thou wilt take my place. The sea demands its tribute, and thou art now its heir. Jack felt the ground shift beneath him. No, I won't let you choose for us. The darkness felt alive. An energy pulsed between her and her mother, a connection that was suddenly too powerful to ignore. No, I don't want this, she screamed, and Jack watched as a fierce light burst from within her, illuminating the darkness. But it wasn't fighting the shadows, it was transforming into something darker. Lily! Jack lunged forward, reaching for her, but the haze of power enveloped them both. The locket in his hand vibrated violently, a painful surge racing through his body. Jack, you have to fight it, Lily cried, panic brewing in her eyes as she fought against the dark magic. I'm trying, Jack shouted. But the shadows only tightened their grip. Above the roar of the storm, a chilling truth seeped through, a truth that shattered everything he thought he knew. "Lily!" he yelled, grasping at the last threads of her sanity. "We need to break this curse. We are stronger than this darkness." "Do you really believe that?" her mother's voice echoed, laced with malice. "You are?" "Thou. Be careful. We." But before he could finish, the shadows surged forward, intertwining with Lily's light. The connection sparked like a wildfire, and in an instant, everything changed. Jack staggered back, breath hitching, as he realized Lily was no longer fighting. Her gaze turned vacant, swallowed by the shadowy form of her mother. "Lily, no!" He could see them melding, their forms entwining in the darkness, the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. "What have you done?" he shouted, voice breaking. "You were supposed to save her," but the transformation was complete. Lily's spirit was merging with her mother's darkness. The battle lost. Jack felt the tide of despair rise, pulling him away, sweeping him into the depths of 1,000 questions. And then a haunting echo cut through the storm. A voice not Lily's, but filled with her essence. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I thought I could save us both." Jack's heart shattered. And everything consumed him in that moment. The realization that the storm faded, replaced by an eerie calm. It was just him now, standing at the edge of the abyss. The shadows had retreated, leaving behind only whispers. A heavy silence took the place of the chaos, pressing down around him. What just happened?" Jack mumbled, breathless. He looked around. "Lily?" His voice cracked, but there was no answer. The night was still, almost too still. It felt wrong. Panic gnawed at him, sharp and vicious. He had to move, had to find her. And then he felt it, a flicker of warmth in his grasp. The locket was thrumming, pulling him. It felt alive, almost sentient, whispering secrets that twisted at the back of his mind. "Where are you, Lily?" Jack whispered, clutching the locket tighter. Suddenly, he didn't care about the fear bubbling up inside of him. All that mattered was her. The locket pulsed, glowing dimly under the moonlight. Jack drew a shaky breath and closed his eyes, summoning everything he had left. "Show me," he murmured. He stepped forward, hesitating only for a moment, his heart thudding like a drum. Each step felt heavy, laden with uncertainty and dread. He glanced back, half expecting to see her, but all he found was the swirling mist embracing the shoreline. "Lily!" he called again, but it echoed back as a hollow reminder of his fear. And then he saw something, a flicker of movement at the edge of his vision. He turned, hope flooding him, but it was just a shadow darting away, teasing him. "Wait!" he shouted, but it vanished. "Come back, please!" The cold seeped in, and despair wrapped around his heart like a vice. He wasn't just losing her, he was losing himself. Confusion churned within him. Did Lily really go after her mother? Was there a part of her that wanted to join her, like a moth to a flame? The very thought tore through him, sharp and agonizing. Suddenly, the fog parted, just a little, revealing a reflection shimmering on the surface of the water. It was the locket, floating. He cried, but other hands followed, rising from the swirling depths, the faces contorted with silent screams. This was a nightmare manifesting, and Jack was at its center. With a surge of adrenaline, he turned and ran. "Lily!" he yelled, as the phantoms chased after him, desperate to drag him into the chaos of the waves. Each footfall pounded into the ground, drowning out the cries. The shadows pulled at him, but he fought against them, sprinting toward the village, heart pounding, breath coming in ragged bursts. He couldn't let them take him too. He couldn't lose everything. And then, just as he burst into the clearing where the village stood, he skidded to a halt. There, illuminated by the flickering light of the street lamp, stood the villagers, faces pale and eyes wide, staring with an expression that sent a jolt of fear through him. "What's happening?" an old man murmured, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Jack, what did you see?" another shouted. We have to stop it. The sea is..." Suddenly, the ground split open at the edge of the shoreline, a dark crevice yawning wide. Jack's breath hitched. The sea began to churn, the water roiling violently as a dark fog seeped from the crack, swallowing the shoreline whole. From deep within the darkness, a voice rose, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "Pilate blood, you awakened the tide." Jack felt it deep in his bones, a history entwined with the darkness. He spun around to face the villagers, desperation coursing through him. "We need to fight!" But then everything changed. A figure emerged from the mist, stepping forward like a specter. It was Matt, his eyes wide, face pale as death. "It's not what you think," he cried, voice cracking under the weight of urgency. "The sea, it didn't just take them. It's alive, and it's waiting." Jack's heart plunged. "What do you mean? Waiting for what?" Matt grimaced, looking around at the gathering shadows. "It waits for..." Hope crumbled inside him, the realization cutting deep. "You don't understand," Matt shouted, hands trembling. "It wants her to claim her birthright, to take her as a vessel. The sacrifice, she has to choose." Jack stepped back, horror dawning. "What do you mean, choose?" But before Matt could answer, the crack widened, the tendrils of darkness creeping closer. "It begins now," he yelled, urgency lacing his tone. "Matt, stop!" Jack shouted. But it was too late. The shadows surged, engulfing Matt, his scream piercing through the air as it snatched him away. Jack's heart slammed against his ribcage. "No!" he shouted. But the darkness had already pulled him under, leaving only silence in its wake. Panic swelled in Jack, and he staggered back, understanding dawning with terrifying clarity. He had to find Lily before the darkness claimed her too. But suddenly, everything shifted again. The specters moved closer. "Your blood holds the key. You have to make a choice, Jack!" Another cried, their voice layering in haunting harmony. "You're connected. You must decide." Jack's heart raced, confusion flooding his senses again. "What do you mean? Deciding what?" But they just leaned in, shadows and light spiraling around them. Then, with a blinding flash, a vision flashed before him. Lily standing at the very edge of the sea, her mother's shadow whispering in her ear. The locket glowing ominously between them. The connection was undeniable, and Jack felt the threads weaving them all together. The curse, the sea, everything. In that moment, clarity struck him. Everything he had believed, every piece, every shred of truth, was unraveling. Lily. She was meant to lead, to take on the burden of the Pilate legacy. Something cold clawed at his heart. No, this can't be true. But the whispers grew louder, shadows twisting around him. You must, he shouted, voice trembling. I'll fight. I have to save her. But just then, the shadows lunged forward, swarming him in a torrent of dark energy. He felt the weight of dread settle into his bones, and then all at once he was engulfed. In that instant, the world around him shattered. Jack gasped, a new reality unfurling in his mind, and he realized, in horror, that everything he once believed had twisted into something monstrous and inexplicable. There was one buried secret that changed the game entirely, the truth of who he really was, and he was not ready for what came next. The weight of loss pressed around Jack like a thick fog, heavy and suffocating. He stumbled back as shadows enveloped him. The cries of the lost echoed louder, twisting through the chaos, making his heart race. A darkness brewed in his chest, tightening, squeezing the hope out of him as he lost sight of Lily. She was slipping away, pulled into the void. Lily, no! Jack shouted, reaching out. Lily! His voice cracked, but there was no answer. The night was still, almost too still. It felt wrong. Panic gnawed at him, sharp and vicious. He had to move, had to find her. Then he felt it, a flicker of warmth in his grasp. The locket was thrumming, pulling him. It felt alive, almost sentient, whispering secrets that twisted at the back of his mind. Where are you, Lily? Jack whispered, clutching the locket tighter. Suddenly, he didn't care about the fear bubbling up inside of him. All that mattered was her. The locket pulsed, glowing dimly under the moonlight. Jack drew a shaky breath and closed his eyes, summoning everything he had left. Show me, he murmured, feeling ridiculous, but the desperation pushed him forward. He opened his eyes. The darkness seemed to shift, revealing a path leading deeper into the fog. He stepped forward, hesitating only for a moment, his heart thudding like a drum. Each step felt heavy, laden with uncertainty and dread. He glanced. He shouted, but it vanished. Come back, please! The cold seeped in, and despair wrapped around his heart like a vice. He wasn't just losing her, he was losing himself. Confusion churned within him. Did Lily really go after her mother? Was there a part of her that wanted to join her, like a moth to a flame? The very thought tore through him, sharp and agonizing. Suddenly, the fog parted, just a little, revealing a reflection shimmering on the surface of the water. It was the locket, floating just out of reach, beckoning him closer. Against his better judgment, he stepped toward it. Lily, he shouted again, voice rising, laced with urgency. As he reached out for the locket, the water rippled violently, sending a shockwave through the air. He stumbled back, terror flooding through him, as a hand shot up from the depths, clawing at the surface, the unmistakable hand of a drowned figure. Jack's heart raced, and he staggered back, bashing into the rocky outcrop. No, What's happening? An old man murmured, his voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. Jack, what did you see? Another shouted. The air was thick with tension, each face a reflection of worry and fear. I don't know, he panted, struggling to catch his breath, the shadows still clutching at the edges of his mind. Lily, her mom. But before he could finish, the ground beneath them rumbled ominously. The villagers looked around, panic etched across their faces. Get inside! Now, someone shouted, and the crowd surged, rushing for shelter. Jack's heart raced. He couldn't run. Not yet. "Wait, you don't understand," he yelled. "We have to stop it. The sea is—" Suddenly, the ground split open at the edge of the shoreline, a dark crevice yawning wide. Jack's breath hitched. The sea began to churn, the water roiling violently as a dark fog seeped from the crack, swallowing the shoreline whole. From deep within the darkness, a voice rose, shaking the very ground beneath thee. It was Matt, his eyes wide, face pale as death. "It's not what you think," he cried, voice cracking under the weight of urgency. "The sea, it didn't just take them. It's alive, and it's waiting." Jack's heart plunged. "What do you mean? Waiting for what?" Matt grimaced, looking around at the gathering shadows. "It waits for the blood of the one who led us here, the daughter of the tide." The revelation struck Jack like a physical blow. Lily was part of this. She was more connected to the sea than he realized. "No, she can't be!" But the shadows thickened, swirling as if they were alive, dancing within the fog. Hope crumbled inside him, the realization cutting deep. "You don't understand," Matt shouted, hands trembling. "It wants her to claim her birthright, to take her as a vessel. The sacrifice. She has to choose." Jack stepped back, horror dawning. "What do you mean, choose?" But before Matt could answer, the crack widened, the tendrils of darkness creeping close. Jack shouted, but it was too late. The shadows surged, engulfing Matt, his scream piercing through the air as it snatched him away. Jack's heart slammed against his ribcage. "No!" he shouted, but the darkness had already pulled him under, leaving only silence in its wake. Panic swelled in Jack, and he staggered back, understanding dawning with terrifying clarity. He had to find Lily before the darkness claimed her too. But suddenly, everything shifted again. The ground beneath Jack trembled as spectral forms began to emerge. Figures from the village, their faces twisted in pain, stepping out of the shadows. Fishermen lost at sea, their eyes hollow. "Help us," one whispered, reaching out toward him, voice thin and hollow. "Save her before it's too late." Jack felt a surge of emotions, anger mixing with despair. "I can't. I don't even know how." He clenched the locket in his hand, desperation coursing through him. The specters moved closer. "Your blood holds the key." "Why?" The connection was undeniable, and Jack felt the threads weaving them all together. The curse, the sea, everything. In that moment, clarity struck him. Everything he had believed, every piece, every shred of truth, was unraveling. Lily, she was meant to lead, to take on the burden of the Pilate legacy. But before Jack could think any further, a voice whispered through his mind. Lily's voice, filled with a mix of rage and sorrow. "You should have known. You should have known the truth." Jack froze, confusion knocking at the door of his sanity. "What do you mean?" he murmured. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, the air thick with tension. "The power, the legacy is within you too. We are both marked by the blood," she hissed, her form flickering. The shadows around him twisted and contorted into shapes that made his stomach turn. "You're as much a part of this as I am." The revelation punched Jack in the gut. "No, I'm not like you," he shouted desperately. "I won't be." But everything around him vibrated with tension, the specters circling closer, threatening to snap like starving wolves. "Enough!" Jack roared, and suddenly the light surged from the locket. expanding outward in a wave that pushed the shadows back, momentarily dispersing their grasp. But then came the shocking twist. A pulse of energy radiated from Jack, pulling him toward the darkness with an intensity that was incomprehensible. He stumbled, ripping his gaze back to the villagers. Their faces filled with horror. Jack felt a sharp pain slice through him as the energy surged. The realization hit like a lightning bolt. He wasn't just connected to this darkness. He was the key to it. The pulse of his blood was awakening something primal. "No, I didn't ask for this," he shouted, confusion and terror mixing. And then the ground shook violently, splitting wide open. A torrent of dark water surged forth, swirling around him, pulling him in like a whirlpool. Jack felt himself slipping. "Low, bound," Jack whispered, tracing the implication in his mind. "But I don't want this. I want to save you." Shadows flickered around her, and she stepped closer, an almost unreal glow bathing her in light. "You're stronger than you know. Together, we can unlock it. We can reshape our destinies." Jack's heart raced. "No, this can't be real. You're not her. This is the darkness talking." But even as he said it, he felt the truth gnawing at him. Lily smiled, but the expression sent chills racing down his spine. "You need to make a choice, Jack. Will you accept what you are, what we are, or will you continue to fight against it?" With her words, the choice laid heavily upon him. He glimpsed battle-saturated images in the corners of his mind. Lost fishermen, screaming spirits, doom entwined with their bloodlines. Everything slammed together, merging into a reality Jack couldn't comprehend. And before he could answer, shadows erupted from behind Lily. A monstrous tide crashed. Life and death danced together, and he was at the center of it all, trapped in a legacy he never chose. "Jack, do it!" Lily urged, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Fight for us! Unlock what lies within!" As the darkness closed in, Jack drew a deep breath, heart pounding. What would he decide? The fate of his bloodline, his heart, and Lily's soul hung in the balance. The shadows twisted violently, blurring the edges of reality as the choice pressed against him. Waiting for the moment he might break or rise above. And as Jack stood on the edge of an abyss swirling with chaos, he knew this was just the beginning of a truth far deeper than he ever could have fathomed. The shadows surged around Jack, wrapping him in a cold embrace as he stood at the precipice of choice. Every heartbeat felt like a drum signaling the end. As the darkness clawed at him, he could feel the split between light and dark widening. His breath came in ragged gasps, and the whispers of the lost echo. Jack blinked against the brilliance, momentarily disoriented. And then he saw it. Something huge, something unspeakable rising from the depths of the sea, at the dark chasm that had split the village shoreline. Great waves crashed against the rocks, and from the water emerged a massive figure. An enormous woman, or at least it appeared so, with the vastness of the ocean swirling around her. Her hair was like seaweed, flowing and twisting in the wind. Her eyes bright and haunting. "Mother!" Lily shouted, and Jack's heart sank as he realized who this woman was. "No, not her. Join us, Lily," the figure boomed, her voice rolling over them like thunder. "You are destined for greatness. This is your birthright. Embrace it." "No," Jack shouted, his heart racing. "Leave her alone." But Lily stepped closer to her mother, glowing with a strange allure. "I have to, don't you see? I've always wanted to know. This is who I am." Jack felt the world spinning around him. The weight of the relentless shadows pushed against them fiercely. The anger of the past mixed with dread. Then, without warning, a deafening roar erupted from the figure in the sea. The tide hath awakened. Thou art part of it, Jack. Thou canst not resist. Jack felt a surge of anger, confusion, every emotion clashing within him. How dost thou know my name? What dost thou want with me? But before the figure could respond, a deep rumble echoed in the air. The shadows took a different shape, morphing into children, women, and men from the village, all familiar faces, all lost souls. They reached out, pleading, "Help us before it's too late." He stumbled backward, heart racing, as he realized the truth that had been buried for generations was clawing its way to the surface. Jack looked at Lily, who stood frozen, torn between the darkness and the light. "This isn't just about you, Lily. There are lives at stake. Dare you question my power?" the great figure boomed, her presence looming over them. "They're all here. The villagers, the families. They never left us. They're still tied to this land." Instead of horror, a look of realization crossed Lily's face. They were taken because of the legacy. They're here in the darkness, and now they want us to join. "Don't do this," Jack cried, shaking his head. "Fight it! It's a trap!" But the shadows grew thicker, and Lily's mother loomed ever closer, a dark smile spreading across her face. "You can't resist the tide. It calls to you both. Just accept it." Suddenly, the world shimmered and split again. A tremendous wave struck, throwing Jack off his feet. As he scrambled to regain his balance, he heard a sound that sent chills down his spine. A loud, echoing laugh came from the figure, rich and deep, swirling through the air, mingling with hypnotic whispers. "No, this is not where it ends," Jack yelled, rising to his feet. "You won't take her. You won't take any more of us." But then came the shock, the unimaginable. Lily shouted, horror-stricken. "No! The bloodline is stronger than you believe," the dark figure roared, her voice resonating deeply through his bones. "It flows through you, both of you." Jack felt the ground shift beneath his feet again, and everything crumbled. It wasn't just the village, the people. It was him. He was part of it all. He was bound by life and death to this legacy. An echo of familiarity flashed, his past and the legacy his own family had kept buried. A history of sacrifices made by the Pilate line, a lineage entwined with the very essence of the sea. "No, I refuse! I choose to fight!" he cried, fighting back the urges deep within. But the shadows closed in tighter, as if they were alive. The faces twisted in anguish, beckoning him closer. "Join us, Jack," they whispered, voices mingling into a single haunting melody. "You can't escape your fate." And then it hit him like a freight train, a realization that shattered him. The curse, it wasn't just, "We have to fight together. We can break this cycle." But as the shadows twisted and danced closer, the truth crashed down like a wave, washing over him. He was bound to this darkness, just like Lily was bound to her mother. He could feel the legacy in his blood, the weight of it wrapping around him like chains. The shadows surged forward, roaring, consuming everything in their path. "Give in," they shouted, a chorus of despair mixed with longing. "No, Jack shouted, a scream of defiance, as he felt the last flicker of his real self begin to fade. And in that moment of chaos, of darkness and shadow overwhelming, an unexpected spark ignited inside him. It was the locket, the warmth and light that had called to him. He held it aloft, feeling the currents of the water pulse against his fingers. As the light burst forth, illuminating the chaos, he realized something even more shocking. The shadow figures merged with the light. They became clear memories, a dreamlike blending of. He could feel the whispers tugging at his mind, pulling him toward a truth he wasn't ready to confront. "No, I won't let you take me," he shouted into the void, his voice echoing back like a cruel mockery. But right then, something unexpected happened. A flash of light erupted from the locket, blinding and brilliant, cutting through the shadows. Jack shielded his eyes, heart racing, mind swirling, as he felt a surge of connection, not just to the locket, but to the figures around him. He was losing himself again, the darkness whispering promises of power and belonging. "Jack!" Lily's voice cut through the thick fog, pulling him back, grounding him. "Please, don't give in. We can fight this." He fought to focus, forcing himself to look at her. Her face was pale but fierce, determination sparking in her eyes. "Lily, But then he noticed something. The darkness writhed, shadows twisting and warping, and the spectral figures grew restless. They were no longer just lost soul. Jack shouted, heart thundering, a cold sheen of sweat coating his skin. "I won't let them take me." And then, from the depths of the darkness, a shocking image emerged. The figure of a woman appeared, a drowned specter with wild hair floating like seaweed. Jack's breath caught in his throat. "Mom," he whispered before he realized what was happening. A memory flashed through his mind, one he thought was lost. He saw her, alive, vibrant, standing in a glow of salt and sun. The laughter of a boy rang through the air, his laughter. Tears prickled at the edges of his eyes, mixing with the fear. You're not real," he cried out, shaking his head, trying to dispel the image. But the woman looked at him with eyes of stormy seas. "I am as real as thou choose to remember," she spoke, her voice ethereal, yet suffused with authority. "Thou art part of the tide. Thou always hath been." "No," he gasped, stepping back. The shadows surged forward, threatening to engulf him. "The Low." "You should have come home," his father murmured, voice breaking through the layers of darkness. "You left us. You made your choice." No, this can't be happening," Jack cried out, despair clawing at his insides. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "That is the burden of our lineage," his father's voice echoed, fading in and out of the shadows. "We did what we thought was right to protect you. The tide flows in our blood." Then it all clicked into place. A floodgate of memories burst open. The tales of the Pilates, the fishermen lost, the darkness that came with greed. It led back to him, his family, everything he had turned away from. Jack felt like he was drowning in a cold ocean of secrets. "You knew. You all knew." He stumbled back, rage mixing with sorrow. The spectral figures swirled around him, changing faces and cries, overwhelming him. "Join us, Jack. You cannot fight your blood," they sang. Voices rising to a haunting crescendo. A sudden crack of thunder enter. "We have to embrace it, not fight it. We need to find a way through, together." "No!" she shouted, voice shaky. "You can't mean—" "Trust me, there's something here," he insisted, the locket burning warm against his chest. "We are meant to uncover this." But just as he became determined, The shadows surged violently. The spectral figures howled, an ear-splitting cacophony filled with grief and longing. Jack held his ground, the light of the locket clashing against the dark. He focused with everything he had, understanding that resisting would only bring destruction. "Together!" he shouted, extending his hand toward Lily. "You have to trust me." With every ounce of his will, he called forth the energy within. The locket blazed bright, fierce as a star, enveloping them in light, pushing back against the darkness. But then, just as the shadows began to fade, a scream erupted from the depths. A form twisted in agony, and Jack's heart sank as he saw the face beneath the shad. A blinding surge erupted, crashing against everything, and Jack understood in a horrifying instant that he was not just a pawn caught in the tide. He was its true heart. Memories collided, weaving the truth into a tapestry so heavy it knocked the breath from his lungs. The ground shook violently beneath them. The figures around him gasped, shadows recoiling as if struck. The tide knew him, recognized him. It was a realization that transformed everything. "Jack!" Lily screamed as she staggered back, hands raised. "What are you?" And in that moment, he glimpsed her truth too. Her power, her essence, wasn't just tied to the darkness. It was woven with strands of light and shadow that intertwine, ready to eclipse everything he thought he knew. Before he could process it, everything exploded. The air sang with energy as shadows surged, light flared bright. "We are one," Jack yelled, arms outstretched, feeling the tides of fate crash against them. But as the storm pulsed, Lily's voice broke through the chaos, a tether he struggled to hold on to. And then, just as abruptly as chaos struck, silence drowned the world, a suffocating, endless quiet. Jack opened his eyes, heart thumping like a thunderstorm. He was somewhere else. Everything felt different. Gone were the waves and shadows. Instead, he stood in the middle of a vast, empty room, an ancient hall filled with dark stone. It vibrated with an unsettling energy, and flickering torches lined the walls, casting ominous shadows that danced like wraiths. Where am I?" he whispered, confusion clouding his thoughts. Ahead, a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette defined by the faint flame of the torches. There was an aura about them, a presence that felt simultaneous, ancient, and powerful. As they stepped closer, Jack's breath caught. It was his mother, but she looked different. Her expression held pain, resolve, and something darker. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he— "Ooh, you can't mean that," Jack shouted back, voice echoing off the stone walls. "Not if it comes at this cost. For the bloodline to be whole, sacrifices must be made. Yours, hers, everybody's," she cried, pain sharpening her words. "The truth is cruel, but it's ours to bear." Tears blurred his vision, as betrayal mixed with anger. "You knew all along, didn't you?" he whispered, horrified. "Everything." But before another word could be spoken, everything shifted and warped. The ground trembled, and the air filled with the roar of waves. The shadows grew wild and unruly, the tide returning to claim its due. "Jack!" The voice of Lily pierced through the chaos, pulling him back to reality. The ties snapping, he felt himself yanked away, pulled back into the turmoil again, teetering at the edge of a choice he wasn't ready to make. "I'll find you," he shouted into the void, determination igniting inside him before ever. You've awakened the tide, Jack, and now you must choose. Jack turned, heart racing, fate unraveling before his eyes. He stood at the center of everything where light met dark, looking at the churning ocean, memories swirling with the tide. The truth coiled around him, heavy and suffocating. There lay not only his fate, but the entire lineage bound by the ocean's depth. And somewhere, in the distance, he could almost hear Lily's voice calling out. But this time, everything felt out of reach, lost within a web of dark choices yet to be made. "Find me," she whispered, and Jack knew this was only the beginning of a storm that would change everything forever. Jack stood at the edge of the shoreline, breath ragged, heart pounding. The shadows that had once threatened to swallow him whole felt different now, distant, almost like a memory fading. The tide lapped softly at his feet, and the echo of Lily's voice still rang in his ears. "Find me." He shook his head, trying to clear the "Jack," came a soft voice from behind him. He turned. It was Sarah, an old friend from the village. Her face was pale, eyes wide with uncertainty. "What did you see?" she asked, stepping forward with trembling hands. "Is it true? The darkness, has it returned?" He stared at her, the weight of their history hovering between them. "We need to find the others. We can't let it win." He took a step toward her, urgency sweeping through him. But just then, the ground rumbled beneath them. The villagers spilled out of their homes, faces drawn and anxious, murmurs rising around them like a swell of fear. "What's happening?" they shouted, panic bubbling forth. Jack's heart sank when he noticed the sky darkening above, thick clouds rolling in, swirling ominously over the ocean. It was as if the sea itself was calling back its lost souls, a tempest brewing in its grasp. "Get closer together," he shouted, hoping to offer some reassurance. "We have to stand strong." But as they, Sarah whispered, fear creeping into her voice. "Yes, we have to believe," he urged, voice steadier than he felt. There was a flicker of light within him, igniting more than just hope. They needed to act. The locket pulsed against his chest. "It all leads back to the locket, to us, to our bloodlines." But just then, the shadows morphed around them, swirling unpredictably in the oncoming storm. Jack whipped around, eyes darting to the horizon where the ocean churned like a beast awakening from slumber. And then he saw it. A massive wave loomed on the cusp, rising impossibly high, an unstoppable force fueled by fury and darkness. "Get back!" Jack screamed, pushing the villagers away from the shoreline as the tide surged forth like an avalanche. Fear clawed at his chest. "Jack!" Sarah cried, but the roar of the wave drowned her voice. Just as the wall of water crashed down, a blinding flash enveloped him again. Time froze. Jack felt his body being pulled in multiple dire. Jack felt a pulse of recognition as he caught glimpses of their terrified expressions. "Jack!" they cried in unison, voices swollen with urgency. "You must listen." The shadows undulated around him, suffocating yet intoxicating. He could sense the secrets they held, only if he chose to embrace them. But suddenly, the air cracked with electricity, and another figure emerged from the shadows, a tall and majestic silhouette with flowing hair that seemed to flicker like flames. It was Lily's mother, but she radiated not just darkness. A shimmering light danced in the depths of her eyes. "Jack," she said, voice echoing deep through the chamber, "you've chosen." Jack felt his heart pound in rhythm with the chaos. Chosen? To do what? The village figures murmured in unrest, shadows trembling at their master's words. "You are tied to this legacy, Jack," Lily's mother continued, her voice low and velvety. "It flows through your veins. It is your birthright." "No, I won't be par. You must embrace your destiny, Jack. Fight it or join it, but know that something much bigger is at play here." "Lily, where are you?" Jack screamed into the shadows, a surge of desperation clawing at him. But the figures only stared back, shadows swirling around them like a tempest awaiting release. As Jack struggled with his uncertain fate, the walls of the chamber began to pulse, like a living organism. In that moment, a realization struck him with the force of a tidal wave. He knew things he had long buried. It's not just about me or Lily. There are deeper secrets. We're all connected by more than blood. Lily's mother sneered, darkness radiating from her being. "You won't learn until the tide claims its due." The shadows twisted and undulated, whispering secrets that clawed at the edges of his mind. Jack felt disoriented. The chamber shifted, walls creaking, shadows tumbling over one another. He was pulled deeper into their consciousness, memories flashing before. It was Lily, shining bright against the darkness. "Jack, we're stronger together." In that moment of clarity, everything solidified. Sacrifice, power, legacy. It was all a web binding them together. Something in him clicked, and he understood. This journey had never been just about him or her. It was about everyone intertwined in this legacy. Water surged, and Jack reached for Lily, fingers brushing against ethereal light, a connection sparking through the chaos. But a surge of betrayal ripped through the tide. What if? Before he could finish, a sudden, shattering roar echoed, shaking the very fabric of reality. The shadows screamed, shapes flickering wildly, and at that moment, everything shifted again. The cavern twisted, dimensions folding in on themselves, pulling them further apart. Darkness grew heavy, wrapping around Jack like a suffocating fog. He grasped the locket, a bond formed like a lifeline, and defiance surged through him. "We will break this! We will K!" Jack felt his heart break at the weight of this revelation. "How could you?" he gasped, tears of loss spilling down his cheeks as he realized that they had all been pawns in a game much larger than he could comprehend. Betrayal hit him with the force of a storm. "You turned your backs! You left us!" But even as he shouted, the truth settled in. The sacrifices they had made, the ties that bound them deeper than blood. The wave pulsed violently, rebelling against the collective energy, as if fighting to reclaim its rightful essence. "Jack, please," Sarah's voice whispered, emerging from the shadows, pressing against the tide. "You must decide. Choose us, or fight against the current forever." I don't know," Jack shouted, feeling the ground shift beneath him. Everything was a whirlwind of pain and truth, choices crashing around him like waves against stone. And then, from the depths, another figure emerged. A stormy silhouette, one Jack never expected to see again. Lily cried, her light flickering against the shadows. He felt the weight of her gaze, the strength of her presence. The tide crashed down, and Jack realized what the true cost of choice would be. The locket pulsed violently in his hand, its energy swirling like the water around them. And at that moment of harmony and chaos, a deafening silence fell, and he'd never felt more lost. A truth slid into his mind, twisting through the fabric of the universe. Whatever lay ahead, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The choice awaited, a choice that could tie them together or pull them apart forever. And just as everything threatened to collide again, a thunderous crash echoed, the waves soaring higher than before. The air shimmered with tension as Jack prepared to confront the abyss. But he still had no idea what horrifying revelation this choice would unveil. Jack felt the tide push against him, the churning water sending desperate waves crashing onto the shore. "We can't. Don't let them take you." With every ounce of strength, Jack summoned the power of the locket. It glowed brightly, illuminating the horrors wrapped in darkness, exposing the fear mingling with memories of love. He could feel the connection between them, pulsing in a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. "Together," he yelled, feeling the energy shift. Lily's eyes blazed alive, and she stepped forward, pressing through the shadows. "Jack, we can break free!" Her voice rang out clear, cutting through the madness. As their hands met, a surge of light erupted, momentarily blinding the dark forms encircling them. The gathered shadows shrieked, a cacophony of lost souls fighting against the brightness. Jack embraced the warmth spilling from the locket, trusting in their bond. Slowly, the maelstrom calmed, silhouettes fading around them, forming familiar faces. It was the souls of the village, flickering like candlelight, revealing compassion and sorrow. "You've awakened the tide." Note, he could feel it all, the history, the fury, yet also the love binding them. The pulse of the locket echoed in time with those he had lost and those he still had. "I will break this cycle," he declared, standing firm. "Jack," Lily's voice broke through the chaos, emerging from their shared light. "We can forge a new path. We can change the tide." Fueled by a newfound hope, Jack locked eyes with her, that haunting connection igniting a fire neither could extinguish. Together, they lifted the locket high, letting its energy pulse and weave through the darkness, a spiral of light, catching the shadows like a net. The tide surged, swirling vibrantly, powerful yet hesitant. Jack's heart raced as he spoke. "You don't have to be lost. We are bound by more than blood. We are bound by choice." The sea roared in response, shadows swirling in a frantic dance. Jack felt the weight of past generations clinging to him, their regrets, fears, and desires all pressing against his spirit. "Everything can change," Jack whispered, allowing the light to pulse brighter, igniting their hope into a beacon that lit the night sky. The shadows wailed, shrieks of anguish echoing as everything began to collapse inwards, merging with the brilliance of their bond. Then silence fell. Jack opened his eyes, breathing hard, the smell of salt and damp earth filling his lungs. He found himself standing on the shore once again. The village behind him bathed in luminescent shades, not dark and twisted, but bright, full of life. Villagers stood around him, familiar faces filled with relief, a soft light shimmering in their eyes. "I did it?" Jack murmured, feeling disoriented. Lily stood beside him, the locket still in her grasp, glowing like a star. "We did it," she said softly, a smile breaking through her fear. "We changed the tide." They embraced, feeling the warmth of each other, the weight of what they had faced beginning to lift. Jack looked around, laughter and chatter fill. "They say the tide always returns," but we can face it. Together. Right? Jack nodded, determination swirling in his gut. They had won this battle, but the war against the shadows of their past wouldn't be easy. With their bond solidified and the dark history acknowledged, they could continue to write their story the way they wanted. And while the sun rose over their village, illuminating everything that had once been so dim, one undeniable truth stood firm. They would be ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Together. As the waves rolled gently against the shoreline, Jack turned to Lily. Whatever comes next, we face it side by side, right? Always, she replied, squeezing his hand. But as they looked out to the sea, they both felt a lingering shadow in the depths, a whisper carried by the wind. Something was still out there, waiting. Guys, this is it. What an epic journey we've just finished together. But I need you to do something right now. Subscribe immediately. Teh.